Welcome to my basement. This is my craft table that I'm supposed to be working at because, I have a craft room. But anyhow, it's cold down here. The lighting's not the best. I got myself a little lamp here so that, I can work a little better. Anyhow, so here's what we're up to. You're at the very beginning of this project. This is All Dogs Go to Heaven. If you watched my channel at all, you know that it was a must-have for me. And I knew from the moment I saw it, I would have to get it. And yeah, I've had a lot of pets in my life. I've lost pets. I have pets now. Animals have always been part of my life since I was young. I am a firm believer that all dogs, animals, cats, chickens, horses, you name it, they do all go to heaven. And someday we will be reunited with them. So here is my plan for this. It is summer now, and I am ready to start working on this. It's going to be something I work on every day. I have decided that I am working on it a half an hour a day, and I'm going to take you along on the journey of All Dogs Go to Heaven and animals and how they impact our lives, because they totally impact our lives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this. You won't see every moment of it, but I'm going to do kind of like a work and chat or share kind of deal with this, okay? You'll see a lot of it. Maybe once a week you'll see something from All Dogs Go to Heaven. I don't think it's going to be more than that, although I am going to be working on it every day for a half an hour. And I have a lot of things to share about animals, alright? So we're going to get into this. I should have brought one of my character minders down, but I think that's going to stick pretty good right there. So yeah, follow along and see the progress I make on this, and enjoy some stories. A lot of the stories are going to be my own personal stories, but I also have some books that have some stories of animals and their impact on people's lives. And I'll be sharing those as well along the way. Some stories will be happy, some stories will be funny. Of course there will be some loss and some sadness. If you can't handle those, I'll let you know if it's going to be a sad day or a, upbeat day. And if you don't want to tune in for the sad days, you don't have to. Anyhow, let's start. I'm starting with my own personal history. From a very young age, as young as I can remember, we had animals, we had dogs, don't remember cats so much when I was young, but always dogs for sure. And that's carried on through my whole life. Let's go to the first dog. There may be a little sadness with this one at the end of this story, but it's my first dog. Clearly she's not around anymore. Okay, so the first dog I remember was Teddy. Teddy was a, what was Teddy? Now I can't think of it. Sheltie. Teddy was a Sheltie. I don't remember a lot about Teddy. I must have been quite young. And I don't think we had Teddy for a long time. Teddy was kind of like my mom's dog. It was the breed that she always wanted, and yeah, there was that. So let me tell you about my first dog. My first dog came from Kentucky. My parents had gone down to Kentucky to a family funeral. Her aunt had died, and they went down for the funeral. Us kids didn't go, just my mom and dad went. And they came back with a dog. My mom's aunt, I guess, I'm not certain on all the details, but she'd been sick in the hospital, and she wanted a dog. She had always wanted this dachshund. Her husband went and got a dachshund, little puppy, and actually snuck the dog into the hospital to visit her while she was in the hospital. So when my mom and dad went down for the funeral, because she passed away, he just didn't want the dog anymore. He couldn't handle the fact that the dog was for her. She was no longer around. Anyhow, my mom and dad were like, well, we'll take her. So they came home from Kentucky from the funeral with a dog. I remember them coming home with the dog, and she's a little red dachshund, cute as a bug. And I don't think she had a name, and we named her Missy. I always called her Missy Mo. I don't know why, but I always called her Missy Mo. Missy Mo was the greatest little dog. I mean, she's the first dog I remember. She was fun. She was always around. She was with us kids. You know, there's 3 of us kids. She was always around us as children. I remember that crazy dog liked snow. I mean, you know, we live in Michigan. We get a lot of snow. And back then, oh man, that was like in the 60s. I don't know, we had a ton of snow back then. I remember more snow than we get now. But this dog, for a little dachshund, she would go out in that snow, and she would hop around and jump in the snow piles, and she liked to chase snowballs. It was hilarious. She had a little ball that she would always play with. Even in the snow, you'd go throw that ball, it would go get into a snowbank, you know, and she'd dig it out, and she was a crazy little thing. But yeah, she was my first dog I remember, and so much fun, just so much fun. So here's the sad part, sad warning, you know, it was a long time ago. I was like 8 or 9, so, you know, that was a long time ago. You know, she's not around anymore, but one day my mom walked into the house, and Missy, before I tell you that part, Missy was always a subject of writing for me. Because I was in school, you know, and I wrote stories about Missy Mo. I wrote poems about Missy Mo. Lots of stories and lots of poems I would write about her. Okay, back to what happened to her. She always wore this little, not studded collar. It was more like a little leather collar that had like little metal bumps on it. They weren't spikes, but just like these little metal bumps. Why is that important? Well, because one day my mom came into the house, and she just had her collar. That's all she had in her hand was her collar. And I remember looking at that collar and seeing that some of those little bumps were not round anymore. You know, they'd been flattened. Well, flattened a little bit, anyhow. And my mom proceeded to tell us that the neighbor boy had found her outside in the yard and told her that he had found our dog just around the corner, down the street, laying beside the road, dead. And my mom, you know, he gave my mom the collar, told my mom where she was, and my mom just brought the collar back, and that's how she told us what had happened to her. it turns out later he knew that she was by the road because he was actually the person who had hit her. Yeah. I mean, and it's a small little neighborhood. It's just like a 2-street little neighborhood. Nobody drives real fast, but when you're, 10, 12 pounds, yeah. So we were going to have a service for her. We always had, my mom had this flower garden. We called it the Rose Garden out in our side yard. It had some little raised beds. It had a archway, arbor kind of thing in the middle. And there were lots of roses planted in there, so we always called it the Rose Garden. I actually got married in the Rose Garden when I was 8 or 9 to my best friend. Yeah, a little ceremony. Yeah. I was a bridesmaid many times, and so I had like dresses and baskets from bouquets and whatnot. So, yeah, somebody decided we were going to get married, and me and my best friend got married in the Rose Garden. There's a happy memory of the Rose Garden. That was funny. Anyhow, my dad, was the one that was responsible for, making a spot for her in the garden. And we all went out there, and she was all bundled up in her blanket, and her little red ball. Why I remember it was red, I don't know, but it was her little red ball, and found her a nice spot in the rose garden where she would stay, And it was, my mom was very faithful, a very faithful person, God, church, that kind of stuff at that time. And she prayed and, whatnot. And blessed Missy and thanked her for all of her years of service and joy and love and attention that she gave to our family. My dad, of course, had the rough job of actually doing the burying of the dog. I remember it vividly because it was the first time that I ever saw my dad cry. Yeah, saw my dad cry. And, it's tough to bury an animal, and I've never actually done it myself. I always kind of get somebody else to do it for me. But, he cried. He was, when my mom was praying, you could hear my dad sniffling. And I kind of glanced over, and there he was, crying. So, there we go, our first story of animals and how they touch your life, touch your heart, your soul, everything about you, They become a member of your family. They become, important. They're not just an animal, They take on human kind of characteristics, and they really just bond and blend with your family. So that was Missy Mo, first dachshund we ever had. Not to be the last dachshund, though. There was a long string of dachshunds after that. So on with the dachshund parade. Yeah. So after Missy, my mom came up with a dog named Heidi. I don't know where she got Heidi. Heidi, though, was a black and tan dachshund. Heidi was just, just a good dog. Hung around the house, and hung out with us kids. And then we started noticing there was another little black and tan dachshund that would kind of, I guess he'd roam around the neighborhood. We knew where he lived. He lived on the other street. We lived on just a 2-street little neighborhood. And he would wander over, I guess. Well, my mom decided at some point that maybe she could borrow this little dog one day while he was on his travels for some stud services. Let's just borrow somebody's dog and let's make some puppies. Okay. We must have known where he lived and things like that. His name was Gustav von something or another. I don't know. He had some big, long, weird name. And so that's what my mom did. One day, her and the neighbor lady across the street, they gathered up Gus as he was out doing his wandering around one day, brought him to our house, out to our garage. And Gus was a miniature dachshund. Heidi was standard size. So Heidi was bigger than Gus. And my mom and the neighbor lady decided that Gus needed some help. This is the strangest story I know. So they got this pillow and everything for Gus, so he was a little taller, and yeah, they helped. Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything more. Anyhow, you know what happened. It worked, and we ended up with a litter of puppies. There were, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 little dachshund puppies, all black and tan. I don't remember many of them. We sold most of them, I think. I don't know to who, but I think we sold them. And kept a couple, but I only really remember one. And that was George. George became my dog. I mean, the members of my family would tell you that George was the family dog, but no, George was mine. George was, he was in love with me, I was in love with him, and he was my guy. All right. I remember we would watch TV together. We'd lay in the family room, and I would lay on my stomach in front of the TV. George would then come and lay on my legs, because I'm laying on my stomach. He'd lay on my legs and lay there with his head on my butt. And we would just lay there on the floor like that for, an hour or whatever, just watching TV. And Gus was just as comfortable as he could be. I was 10, 11 years old, and he'd just lay there with me. And, Gus and I watching TV. Gus, why do I keep saying Gus? George and I watching TV. So we moved. Like I said, I don't know what happened to the other dogs that we may have kept. I don't even know. He's the only one that I remember. If I could get his name right. So at some point we moved, and we moved out to the country. I did not want to move. My friends were there in this little small neighborhood. I had no desire to move at all. I think I was 12, maybe 13 at the time when we moved to the country. We still had Heidi. I know we had Heidi. And of course George. Well, we encountered the neighbor kid, Eugene. Eugene was your typical boy neighbor that you didn't want to deal with, bratty, blah, 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 Eugene would just pick. And he realized at some point that if he picked at me, George didn't like it. It would get George very upset. George would, growl at him a bit. And the more Eugene did it, the worse George got. So then Eugene started, nudging me and tapping me or slapping me on the shoulder a little bit. just to see George's reaction. And George would growl at him, you know, very protective and very defensive of me. And Eugene, of course, thought it was just hysterical. He'd keep doing it. Really was annoying, right? So I remember one day I had George in my arms, and I was walking across our yards. They lived right next door, and we had a big yard between us because we're in the country, right? And I was walking across the yard, and Eugene was coming over or something. He just liked to come hang out with everybody. And he came up to me in the yard, and he started doing his little messing around thing, tapping me, getting George to growl at him and all that. And George, in George's defense, was, you know, trying to protect me, and went to bite Eugene. He'd never bitten anybody, but, you know, a dog can only handle so much terrorizing, and went to bite Eugene and bit me instead. I was holding him. He lunged forward, bit, got my arm, not Eugene. Yeah. George was so protective of me. That's why I say he was really my dog. Even though my sister would say, well, he was the family's dog. Yeah, but you know who he hung out with the most. And it was always me that he was being protective of. So, yeah. George was my guy. I loved that dog. I mean, I would be outside playing. George would come outside. He'd hang out with me. And, you know, it was me and George. Me and George. That same neighbor kid, also, I don't know why he did things he did. He would terrorize our cats. When we moved to the country the first time, I remember having cats. When we moved to the country, and we had cats. And he would also, there was one cat in particular he liked to pick at and just terrorize because of the reaction he would get. You know, they say that about bullies. Bullies are bullies to people that they get a reaction from. Right? That's why George was his target. That's why Sassy. Sassy was the cat that he picked on the most. And that's why Sassy was his target. Because of the reactions that he got from them. You know? They let him know they didn't like it. And the more they objected, the more he thought it was funny and would, you know, terrorize them more. Not nice. Just not a nice kid, you know? I remember vividly, I swear, I remember as clear as day, the one time that he took Sassy and threw her up on the roof of our house. Just threw her up on the roof of the house, like, you know, here. Well, again, why? Just because, you know, I don't know. Just being mean. Saw Eugene a few months back. His mom died. You know, the lady who lived next door, our neighbor. She passed away. And we went to the funeral. And the subject of the cat came up. And he's like, I didn't do that. I did not throw that cat up on the roof. You can ask. You will ask the other neighbor kid. Scott did that. It was him. It wasn't me. And I was like, no, it was you. I was there. I remember it. And he goes, here we are at his mother's funeral, right? And he says, I swear, on my mom's grave, I didn't do it. It was the other neighbor kid. And I'm like, we're at his mom's funeral. He's swearing on his mom's grave he didn't do it. I said, well, since we're at your mom's funeral and you're swearing on her grave right now, I'll believe you. But, you know, part of me was just still like, I don't know. I still think it was him. I really do. Just because of, he always terrorized the cat, terrorized my dog. You know, why wouldn't he be the one to throw the cat on the roof? I don't know. Mean. Why would people do that? It's just mean. You know, and it makes us feel bad. They're our loved ones. They're our friends, our family. You know, anyhow. I don't know what happened to George. I don't know how George died. I don't know. I don't remember it. I don't know if it's because I just put it out of my mind, or I really don't. All I can think is that George just died of old age, and we probably buried him, but I really have no recollection of it, which is kind of weird. For as much of a bond as we had that dog for years and years and years, and you know, he was my best bud as a kid. He was just my buddy. He helped me through the move. You know, at least I had something stable in my life when we moved. I didn't really have friends when we moved out there. There weren't any kids my age. My sister made friends with the girl down the street. They became best friends. Still are. I didn't have anybody, you know. I just didn't make friends with people there. There wasn't anybody for me to be friends with. But I had my dog. And, yeah. So anyhow, that's George. A little bit about Sassy, the cat, and the mean neighbor kid. I think he finally grew up a little bit and stopped being such a jerk, but, you know, he was just a jerk back then. Anyhow, like I said, that's the first recollection I have of cats in our world. Cats, at that point in my life, were just cats. I mean, I didn't have bonds with cats like I did with dogs. The cats were just there. And the cats were everywhere. I mean, we had a barn eventually. We had, you know, barn cats. And barn cats, if you know anything about them, if you don't have your barn cats spayed or neutered, what's going to happen? You're going to get more cats. I think one year we had like 26 cats running around. It was crazy ridiculous how many cats there were. And other than Sassy, and maybe it was because Sassy was the one that got picked on by the neighbor kid, I don't know. Sassy was the only one I really can recall. The only one I remember having any kind of a relationship with. The others were just kind of there, you know? So, when there's 26 of them, they're all over the place. I think we lost some. Hang on. This is a ick moment. I think we lost some, like, in motors of cars, you know, in the winter when it's cold. Cats like to go someplace warm. Yeah, I think we lost a couple there in an engine. That's kind of gruesome, I know. Sorry. There was one, my parents had a deck off their bedroom. Their bedroom was on the second story, and they had a deck that went off their bedroom. And one winter, these Michigan winters, they were rough. They were rougher back then, I think, than they are now. But they were hearing meowing, 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 and it was out on their deck. And they went out there, and there was a cat on their deck. Remember, this is the second story. There's a cat out on their deck. The cat was frozen to the deck. Frozen to the deck. So they went in and they got, you know, buckets of warm water and got the cat unfrozen from the deck. Ready for another gruesome moment here. Don't want to hear it. Mute. Picked the cat up to take the cat inside, and the cat's tail stayed on the deck. The cat lost her tail on the deck. Yeah. Now the cat was fine, just fine. Took her in, warmed her up. She stayed in, and lived many, many years after that. She was just fine. She just didn't have a tail anymore. Yeah. Like I said, barn cats, farm cats, I don't think they get the best care. And, sometimes things happen. They're, anyhow, cats. I never really bonded with the cats other than Sassy. So, let's zoom forward a bit to, or just change topics, I guess, still animal, but let's move to a different animal. Talked about some dogs, talked a little bit about some cats. Let's talk about horses. Horses are one of those animals that, oh my goodness, if you've never had a horse, owned a horse, or dealt with horses, you don't get it. You think about your dog if you are a dog owner and how you bond with your dog. Now think of a horse. It's just a big dog. I mean, they really are. They're just big dogs. Same kinds of attachments that you would have to a dog, you'll have with a horse if you own a horse. My sister always wanted a horse. She was going to have herself a horse when we moved to the country, one way or another. She started saving her lunch money, her allowance, any money she got for gifts. She was saving her money. She was getting herself a horse. She did. She saved up enough money. It was either $200 or $300 or something like that to get herself a horse. It was a pony. He was Arab and Gallicino or something like that. Mostly Arab though. Pony just means you're not young, in case you don't know anything about horses. Ponies aren't young horses. They're just small horses. It's all just about the size. They just aren't tall or big like a horse. So they're pony size. Josh was a pony. Okay. She bought that horse before my parents had a barn or any place to keep the horse. If I recall, I don't know, there was some fencing. They tried to just keep him in a little fence or something when she first got him. And then my parents eventually built like I wouldn't call it a barn. I would call it a shed, a shack, a shack. Yeah, it was just a structure that the horse could go into in bad weather. It wasn't anything great. They did eventually build a barn, but for Josh's first year or so of being there, it was just, he had the fenced area and this little run-in shack kind of thing. I guess it worked. I don't know. So, Josh became just like the family's horse, at some point. Became the family's horse. Everybody rode Josh. Josh was what you would call a green broke horse. Means somebody had been on him, ridden him, taught him a few things, but that was about it. Green broke, barely ready to ride, basically. So the rest of Josh's learning and training came from 3 kids who didn't have a clue what they were doing. We'd never been trained to ride horses. Our cousins always had horses, and we would ride horses when we would go to their house, but that was about it. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. So it was just get on and go and, make the best of it. It was fun. I mean, we learned together, pony and kids, and he was never calm. Let's just put it that way. He wasn't crazy, wild, stupid. Well, none of those things. He just was very excitable, very energy, and he was, always wanted to go. Yeah, always. So my brother decided it was fun to, I'll say, cowboy with him. you know, like, yeehaw, let's go, yip it up, run fast, run hard, no bridle, no saddle, run up hills, just, you know, tear off, you know, and get him to rear up. I don't know why he thought that was so fun, but he would get him to rear up and do all this crazy stuff, and, you know, he thought that was fun. It was his style of riding, and he was having a great time. He was fearless. He didn't care. We didn't like it as girls. We didn't like it. We didn't like riding that way. I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised. I didn't think that this would be green in here in these clouds down here, but it's green. There's greens. Interesting. So, yeah. The time came when, you know, everybody was getting older. My sister got married. I had children. My sister moved to New York. My parents now had other horses. They had bought Preppy and Misty, and Preppy was... Preppy had training on her when they got her. She had a good 30 days worth of training with a trainer, so she was more broke than Josh had ever been. And the time came when my sister was not there. The horse was still there. My parents were basically taking care of the horse. She was off in New York, married. My niece moved in with my parents. Not going into a lot of detail, there were situations that occurred with her parents that neither one of them could take her, could, you know, I don't know, have her, keep her. My brother was a truck driver, still is. He couldn't have her. Mom, I don't know, just things happened. I'm not getting into personal stuff, but she ended up living with my parents, and she lived with my parents for a long time. So a time came when the neighbor girl was doing 4-H and showing horses. And my daughter and my niece both wanted to show horses at 4-H and the fair and all that stuff. Well, my parents, they had the 2 horses. They had Josh, you know, who is now just really the family horse, even though he's really my sister's. Sorry about the little break, but my camera ran out of storage. Yeah, I'm having that happen a lot lately. Anyhow, let me finish this story up of Josh and the ponies and the fair and whatnot. So both the girls wanted to show horses. There were 2 horses that were on the farm available for use, Josh and Preppy. Josh, who had been just the farm guy, hanging out at the farm, doing farm stuff, running around, acting like a fool most of the time. And Preppy, who was a little more trained, had some training on her, a little calmer. She was a quarter horse. She was a bit calmer and a little more subdued. So the decision was made, and I don't know how, but the decision was made that my niece would use Preppy and my daughter, Shannon, would use Josh the pony. Josh the pony. All right. He had his own ideas about what riding was all about. My daughter, who wanted him to be a nice, kind of calm, quiet show horse, he wanted to do other things. It wasn't the best match. He wasn't a bad horse. He wasn't wanting to do what she needed him to do for her purposes in 4-H. And he gave her a run for her money. Now, mind you, she didn't know what she was doing. He didn't know what he was doing. So it was just, it wasn't going well. They managed, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 years that she used Josh, but they managed. Nothing great ever happened from it. I was learning how to be a horse show mom, help my daughter. I didn't know what to do with this horse either. You know, it was definitely a case of just not the right match. You know when things work, and that just didn't work. They made it through, they managed, but the bond was not there. You have to have a bond with your animal, and that one, it didn't happen. So we moved on to different horses after that, and we'll talk about those in our next episode. But thanks for watching this. I'm going to put this little segment out there as the first segment. You know, some of you might like the stories of animals, some of you don't. Everybody has their own cup of tea, so if you like hearing about it and kind of watching All Dogs Go to Heaven by Diamond Art Club as it progresses, you know, check me out for a couple minutes. You don't have to watch the whole thing, whatever. So, thanks for stopping in. If you're watching this, you clearly watched part of it, so thank you for that. And I will see you next time.